Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam tells us, I want you to listen to this beautiful hadith, which is in Bukhari and Muslim. He said, كيف بكم? What will you do when? كيف بكم? What will you do when? Iraq, منعت العراق قفيزها ودينارها. When Iraq is denied its currency, the قفيزها is the old currency of Iraq. What will be your state and what will you do when Asham, when its currency is denied? And what will you do when Egypt, its currency will be denied? And you return to where you began in the first place. What does this mean? When Iraq is denied its currency, when a country falls, its currency falls as well, doesn't it? And you no longer deal with its currency. Another currency replaces it. Al-Rasul ﷺ, or the narrator of this hadith, the Rasul ﷺ was asked, how will it fall? And he said, by foreign intervention. Foreign intervention. Al-Ajam. So Iraq's currency will fall by the invasion, and another currency will replace it. Then, after that, he placed it in sequence. Asham's currency will be denied. So Asham as a nation will fall. Again, another currency will replace soon, and it has to be by a foreign intervention. Currently, we see only one part of it, inside. It's a bigger picture than what you think. Yes, this is one part of it. Yes, there are oppressors. There is an oppressor in there. Yes, there are oppressors. Yes, it is there. However, it is one of the rocks, one of the plots within the bigger plan. Then Rasul ﷺ said, after Asham, he mentioned Misr, Egypt. You think it's over for Egypt right now? According to this hadith, which is in Bukhari and Muslim, something else is coming up. When the currency of a nation falls, it means that the country itself falls and there is an invasion, as Rasul ﷺ mentioned over here. It's not happened to Egypt yet, but this seems like the sequence that Rasul ﷺ is informing us about it. He also said in another narration, this hadith by Abu Huraira, تُنْتَهَكُ ذِمَّةَ اللَّهِ وَذِمَّةَ رَسُولِهِ. What does this mean? ذِمَّةَ Allah, meaning the Romans or the non-Muslims who used to exist at the time of Islam, when Islam ruled for more than 1,000 years. There were non-Muslims who lived in the lands of Islam, and they were called Dhummis, meaning the ones who are entrusted to us. They lived in our lands and we gave them the right to live in peace, and they had to pay something in return for our protection of them. But not the Muslims. Muslims pay zakat. They had to pay this thing called jizya, which means that will protect you, provide you. Today they say tax, we call it jizya for the non-Muslims who live among us. Only this is a type of agreement. When this, he said, the people who used to do this before, they will no longer do it anymore, meaning they will be overpowering you. And these are the types of people who will invade you. Now these are the facts, and we see it today. What has happened to Iraq is not something that anyone can deny. And what is now happening in Asham is both intervention within and outside. And it is yet to come. Asham, however, is totally different to the rest of the world. It is different to Iraq. It is different to Egypt. It is different to everything. Asham means Lebanon, Syria, parts of Jordan, Palestine. They call it today Israel. Israeli territories are in there. Palestine and parts of Turkey. This was Asham. And you know, when after World War I, what happened? They divided Asham. They concentrated on Asham to divide it into different states, each one with a flag. And they turned the Arabs and Turks against each other because we were once one nation. It was called the last Khilafah al-Uthmaniyya, because we became materialistic, and our pride of lineage and our pride of nationalism and our pride of racism crept into us. This was the best way to plot and plan to break us apart. Until today, look at us in misery, فالرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم said, اتركوها فإنها منتنة. Leave it alone, for it is a stinking carcass. It cannot bring anything but misery, unhappiness and stench. This is what's happening to us today.
Here are the facts. General Albert Pike was born in December of 1809. He was exceptionally bright and allegedly accepted into Harvard, although he didn't have the money to attend. Today, Pike is remembered as a pioneer in the early courts of Arkansas, a Confederate officer during the Civil War, and a central figure in the development of Freemasonry. He's still the only Confederate officer with a statue in Washington, D.C. History is divided on Pike. He's been called a genius, a villain, and an occultist. But that's not all there is to this story. Some people believe Albert Pike was more than just a lawyer and a general. Much, much more. Here's where it gets crazy. Depending on who you ask, Albert Pike may have been the leader of the Ku Klux Klan, a Satan worshipper, or even the king of the Freemasons. In The Unseen Hand, A. Ralph Epperson argues that a great deal of historical events have been planned in advance. Epperson believed that Albert Pike was at the center of this conspiracy and the highest-ranking Mason in the United States, or possibly the world. Pike is also accused of being a member of the Illuminati and a harbinger of a coming new world order. The stories about Pike's alleged occultism and villainy are both varied and, to a large degree, impossible to prove. For example, some claimed he had a magic bracelet that allowed him to commune with the devil. Others claimed that he helped found the Ku Klux Klan, or that President Andrew Johnson considered Pike his Masonic superior. Masonic databases deny the allegations about Pike and the Klan, but that hasn't stopped conspiracy theorists, especially anti-Masonic theorists, from making this claim. Anti-Masonists believe that Freemasons have destroyed most of the records proving Pike's involvement in sinister affairs. However, one claim takes attention over all the others. In 1871, Pike allegedly sent a letter to an Italian political activist named Giuseppe Mazzini, in which he describes a curious dream about 3 world wars. In this letter, Pike apparently outlines specific events leading up to World Wars I and II. Additionally, Pike pushed for the organization of communism, Nazism, Zionism, and other international movements as tools to escalate these conflicts. According to this letter, the Illuminati will provoke a third world war by creating religious conflicts in the Middle East. After this war is ended, the letter claims that nihilists and atheists will create bloody turmoil, leading the world's disillusioned masses to follow Lucifer. For those who believe this conspiracy theory, Pike's letter accurately predicts the course of world events.
World wars change worlds, and if you have a global agenda, then global problems allow you to offer global solutions. And if you look how the world was transformed by the First World War and the Second World War, the world was a completely different place after both of those wars. And the idea all along has been to have a third world war to complete the transformation into a global state with a world government and a world army dictating to the global population. And there was a letter, a controversial letter, because people dismiss it, but with the passage of events it becomes more and more credible. And it was a letter written by a man called Albert Pike, who was a massive Freemason in the United States in the 19th century. And it was to another Illuminati infamous character called Mazzini, Giuseppe Mazzini. And it detailed 3 world wars that would transform global society. And the first one described it in the terms that happened. The second one it described in terms that it happened. But, you know, you can say, well, it came to light later, so, you know, maybe they just put that in and faked the accuracy of the first 2 wars. So the credibility of what it said lies in what it said about the Third World War. And it talked about creating a conflict between the Muslim world and what it called political Zionism. So the idea that Albert Pike would know that this Zionist movement was coming and the establishment of Israel was coming is very credible when you look at the background evidence. And of course, Zionism was established not that long after this letter was supposed to be written. And so he was talking about the Muslim world being brought into a war with the political Zionism, what today we call Israel, and that this would, you know, in my terms, create a vortex that would draw in the world, in our terms, America, the European Union, NATO, into this war. And what you have now is a situation that this ISIS group has come out of nowhere, in effect, incredibly well armed, incredibly funded. I mean, I've seen figures like $2 billion at its disposal. And it's walking into towns in Iraq and taking them over. It's established itself at the key border crossings into Syria and into Jordan. And it's all happened really fast. And what the potential of this clearly is to do what Pike was talking about. Because I've said in my books for years that the plan was to create a massive divide and rule conflict between the Shia Muslims and the Sunni Muslims. I mean, I know it's hard to believe for anyone frickin' sane, but this argument over, this ancient argument over who should, you know, be the natural successor to, the rightful successor to Muhammad and all that stuff, has created this enormous schism. And schisms are there to be manipulated and exploited by these people. So what you have, therefore, is this ISIS that suddenly appeared with its grotesque violence that is representing Sunni Muslims. And then you have the regime currently in Iraq that is representing, in effect, Shia Muslims. And you have, just across the border, the center of the Shia Muslim world, and that's Iran. But when you come from this perspective, what they're doing is they're trying to draw Iran into this Sunni Shia conflict, like, you know, protect the Shia that this Sunni ISIS are threatening and overrunning at the moment. And once they get Iran pulled into that vortex, it ain't going to get out. Yeah. Then there's another aspect of this, which is a real red flag for me. And that is, this ISIS organization is very extreme. And its very name, when you break down the wording, is describing its ambitions. And that's to take over Iraq, to take over Syria, and to take over what they call the Levant. And what does the Levant include? Israel. So here you have this extreme Muslim group, or actually army, actually saying in its own name that our intention is to take over the Levant, to take over Israel. And you'd think at any other time, even with a lesser situation, Netanyahu would be surrounded by microphones and he'd be saying, we must be protected, Israel is in danger. Instead, he's come out and said, oh, no problem, you leave them to it. America, no, don't intervene, leave them to it, let them basically weaken each other. And then you've got the United States, their reaction. I mean, it sums up the ludicrous nature of it, that John Kerry has gone to Iraq and he said, well, we don't know about bloody airstrikes because, you know, we might kill civilians. Well, that's never stopped you in the past, mate, has it? Or any of your predecessors. And what it seems to me as I'm reading this is that they're all standing off to let this ISIS get a big foothold in that region. And then if it moves to the point where it starts to threaten Israel, then the button will be pressed. Then the Americans and NATO will come in because they're committed to protecting Israel's security. And then you'll start to see why that sliver of land called Israel, with less than 8 million people, has one of the best equipped armies in the world and a nuclear arsenal. Because what Pike was talking about was drawing all these different disparate groups in and creating this vortex of mutual self-destruction, which would change the war that would change the world, taking on from the previous world wars that changed the world, and then at that point their global fascist society would be brought in. No doubt justified by, we need a world government and we need a world army to stop this ever happening again, even though we who are saying that actually created it.
It is in this scenario that we now want to introduce how Dajjal is going to exploit the Sunni Shia division to his advantage in Akhir Zaman. The answer is, he wants to provoke Sunni Shia civil war. That's what he wants to provoke. If he can succeed in provoking Sunni Shia civil war in the world of Islam, what would be the benefit for him and for the Zionists? Number one, Islam is going to look terrible before the entire world on the stage of the world. Look at these Muslims at a time when they are back to the wall, fighting for their very lives. Look at how foolish the Muslims are, fighting amongst themselves. Islam is going to look so bad that whatever sentiment there may be in the world sympathetic towards Muslims, even that might be lost. And that will be tremendously advantageous to Israel and to the Zionists and to their propaganda war in CNN and Al Jazeera and the newspapers and the television sets. You can just imagine. They're going to have a field day laughing at the Muslims who are fighting amongst themselves at this time. Number two, Dajjal will consider it advantageous to provoke a Sunni Shia war, because such a war will weaken both the Sunni and the Shia at a time when Sunni and Shia should be trying to build maximum strength and power to resist Israel and to resist the Zionists. Thirdly, Sunni Shia civil war is going to break up Pakistan. There's no way that Pakistan can survive. They are the ones who planned 9/11. And one of the reasons why they planned 9/11 is to be able to get a base in Afghanistan from which to target Pakistan. To attack Pakistan, to destroy Pakistan's nuclear plants and nuclear weapons, and break up Pakistan into bits and pieces. They've not been able to do it for 10 years. Even though they had the presidency in their camp, a man named Pervez Musharraf, before he left, the Pakistanis were calling him Dog Musharraf. For 10 years, and this is to the credit of the Pakistani people, that they've not been able to do it as yet. They are actually waiting for civil war. The reason why they have all the drones killing the Pakistani people and even killing the Pakistani soldiers is because they were hoping to provoke civil war in the Pakistan armed forces. But it has not happened so far, because the Pakistanis knew what they wanted and have denied it. But if they succeed in provoking Shia-Sunni civil war in the world of Islam, goodbye Pakistan.